All right, next up is Greenbush Brewing Company's Rage Double Black IPA.
Indeed. I was really excited the first time I ever had this beer because I'd been a big fan of Anger for quite some time. You know, Anger's been around, I think, pretty much as long as they have. But Rage was quite the addition. I think first time I had it was Winter Beer Fest a couple of years ago. And I was like, man, what was that? And they're like, oh, it's Imperial Anger. So we called it Rage. And I think it's like 11 or 12%. It's huge. Massive double black IPA.
Oh, it's a great beer. I look forward to getting this at the. I usually try to get it if I can before the lines because Greenbush always has a massive line. But I love Greenbush. They make big beers, and that's what they do. And it's a great beer, and it's a well balanced black IPA. Some black IPAs kind of get a little too hoppy for me, but this one, Anger and Rage,
They're both
yeah.
so good.
Yeah, just really good beers. Really good beers. So we have up number 7 is Griffin Claw's Norma's Raggedy Ass IPA.
Oh, yes. This is a good one, man. As I said before, about Mitten Country Strong, it's really hard, to sort of find standout IPAs because there's just so many. They're just everywhere. The first time I ever had Norm's Raggedy Ass IPA was back when they were still Big Rock Chop House, and I was just absolutely floored. The World Expo of Beer 2010 was the first year that at the time Big Rock Chop House had submitted norms for the style of American IPA. And this was an international competition for American IPA. There were breweries submitting from all over the U.S. and all over the world for the style. And little Big Rock Chop House out in Birmingham and a little 3-barrel production system made the best American IPA 2010. So it's fantastic. It's clean. It's got a great hop presence, and you can just drink it. There's just something just uniquely clean about Norm's that just separates itself from all the others.
Well, also, too, I think that it's not too much hops. Like, it's a big beer, but also it seems to me that has a little bit of maltiness to it that because IPAs that it's all hops and it's just bitter. I don't know. I like IPAs that are balanced a little more. I'm a little more malt. I pull a little more to malt than I do to hops. But I think this beer is just, it's what an IPA should be.
Absolutely. Agreed. Fantastic.
Number 6 is New Holland Brewing Company's Black Tulip Triple.
This was this was an interesting choice, and I think partially so because Black Tulip isn't necessarily what one would consider a traditional triple, as opposed to sort of Final Absolution, which was sort of in lower down, still made the list. That's the only other triple on the list. But the Dragon Mead Final Absolution is very yeasty and very yeast-driven, which is delicious in its own right. But the New Holland Black Tulip, the thing that I like about it is that it's so tight and it's so clean. It's got a great sort of malt-forward body to it, but it's crisp and it's clean and it's drinkable. And it's got a good amount of alcohol to it. I mean, somewhere in the realm of 7 to 10 off the top of my head. But man, just great malt-forward triple, and it's not yeast dominated. The esters are really tight, and the presentation is just an experience. I really enjoy that beer.
I think I've had it before, but it's been a really long time, so I'm kind of excited to go back and try that one.
Indeed.
Number 5, which I have a lot of experience drinking, would be the Dark Horse Brewing Company Stout Series 1 through 5. Every one of the stouts there's not one that I don't like. I think they all bring a certain character, a certain flavor to the table, and probably my favorite would be the Trace Blueberry. I just what I really love about that beer, it's not too much blueberry, it's not too fruity, but it still has a little you can taste it tastes blueberry.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not overpowering. And Plead the Fifth, I mean, not an everyday beer, but I mean it is big, it's aggressive, and it's just tasty. It's a great beer. But what are your thoughts? What are your favorite?
I really like all of them. I really like the 2 Cream Stout and the Trace Blueberry as well. I mean, it's so hard to actually pull off a good fruit beer, let alone a good fruit stout. Like, how difficult is that? But they managed to do it and do it well. The 2 Cream Stout is one of the best lactose stouts around. I know we talked about that a little bit with Neapolitan, and 2 Cream Stout is just fantastic. I did a beer dinner at Frederick Meyer Gardens last year, and I served 2 cream stout with an espresso cheesecake with a salty pretzel crust, and it was just amazing. But of course, Plead the Fifth, and then the rarer siding of the barrel aged Plead the Fifth is just absolutely fantastic. And yes, this is 5 beers in one slot, and I know I can't technically do that, But the reason why I did was because these are all they're kind of a family, and they are all excellent. Across the board, all 5 of them are really very good. Just real quick, I'm going to go through that list. That is, the first beer is called 1 Oatmeal Stout, brewed with oats. 2 is called 2 Cream Stout, and that's brewed with lactose sugar. And then Tress Blueberry Stout, 4 Smoked Stout, and Plead the Fifth Imperial Stout.
And next up, number 4 is Bell's Brewery Black Note.
Mm-hmm. The beast.
And Black Note it's not the easiest beer to find, but I found this summer that a lot of festivals had that there, and so I had it probably 4 or 5 times. Every time I'd have to at least get 1 beer. But it's boozy, but it's creamy, and it's a really nice balance, and just a great beer.
It's just huge. And I mean, and we're going back to this idea that I sort of want to reiterate in terms of the top 10 is that, when I'm thinking about this top 10, I'm thinking about brewers managing extreme flavors and turning them into a beautiful display of flavor. So I just sort of wanted to remind you to sort of keep that in mind when we're thinking about the top 10, not necessarily Paul specifically, but, you, the listener, sort of keep this in mind is that this top 10, that's the idea that this top 10 is based on, is this idea of these managing these extreme flavors and turning them into a beautiful presentation. So. And then I really think Black Note does it very well. It's impressive on a number of fronts. I mean, not only is it one of the most sought-after beers, in the state of Michigan, but it's also aged very well. It's matured very well. So that tells me not only was it designed well, not only was it brewed well, but it was also matured and cellared well, which is also the sign of a great cellar master. It's very easy to over-barrel age beers, and that's been one of my biggest beer beefs for like the last 2 years. Is just over the top barrel aging. It's just too much for me. A stout can only handle so much barrel presence. So,
well, yeah, and there's I've had this barrel aged beer before that was like 15% alcohol. It was just so boozy. I was like, why don't I just take a shot?
Yeah,
it was just not good.
Absolutely,
it was just not good,
and that does happen.
Yeah, definitely. Number 3 is Coonan Brewing Company's Drippa and Trippa.
Indeed, this was one of those beers that just blew me away from the first time I ever got to try it. Double Rice IPA was a gold medal beer at the 2012 World Beer Cup for American IPA, which is very awesome. It's always great for Michigan to take home some gold. But Coonan Drippa took that gold in 2012, and that was I kind of feel like what really sort of started to draw attention to it. And when I heard about that gold medal, I was like, I have to try this beer. I have to try it. And at a beer festival, I swung over to not Dark Horse. I swung over to Coonan, and they had that Drippa on, and I was like, I gotta try this. What's up with this gold medal? And it was just fantastic. So light and so crisp, and the body is just so light and sort of rice-driven that the hop profile just explodes, and it's just such a fantastic, unusual take on IPA. And then Trippa's been turning up at beer festivals through 2013, so hopefully that'll continue through 14. Hopefully people will get a chance to try the Triple Rice IPA as well.
Yeah, I've had Trippa a few times. Obviously, great beer. I believe I've had Trippa, but it is probably at one of the festivals. And but everything, just about everything Coonan does is a standout beer. And when I had the Drippa, it's unique. It's a delicious beer. Indeed. So we're up to number 2 is Founders Brewing Company, KBS, and Breakfast Stout. And I think it's interesting that you didn't put CBS on here, which I think is harder to get than KBS. But KBS is, it's a great beer. It's a good blend between the booziness and the creaminess. It's a real nice blend, and probably Breakfast Stout is one of my favorite of all time beers. For a stout, you couldn't really ask more.
Very true. I agree very wholeheartedly. I think Breakfast Stout is probably one of the best beers that Founders makes, in my opinion. I just absolutely love it. The balance and the maturation is just absolutely fantastic. And then, yeah, totally, CBS. I don't know. I don't know how that managed to slip past me. But for those of you who don't know, Breakfast Stout is the standard breakfast stout from Founders Brewing Company. I believe it's brewed with coffee and chocolate, so it's delicious breakfast stout. And then KBS is breakfast stout aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels. And then CBS, Canadian breakfast stout, is breakfast stout aged in Canadian maple syrup bourbon barrels. So there's a couple variants on there. I'm surprised I forgot CBS on that list as well.
I actually haven't had CBS before. I mean, the Guild festivals, they have it there, but the line's usually crazy. So I haven't tried that yet. I mean, that's the thing about this is your list. There's a few beers on here I haven't had, and but I think it's a great list. And now we're to drumroll, please.
That's my crappy drum
roll. Number one would be Griffin Claw Brewing Company from Birmingham, Michigan. It's a Russian Imperial Stout, which I personally haven't had this beer before, so you tell us a little bit about it.
Sure, absolutely. Russian Imperial Stout was originally called a Flying Buffalo Russian Imperial Stout. Big Rock Chop House is a chop house in Birmingham, and they had an on-site brewery, so it was just called Big Rock Chop House Brewery. Head brewer's name is Dan Rogers. He's sort of a Michigan Einstein brewer. He's been all over the place, and he sort of found his home at Big Rock. So Flying Buffalo Russian Imperial Stout, first time I ever tasted was my very first beer festival, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And I've been tasting it through the years. Have bottles I've tasted aged, I've tasted it fresh, I've tasted it at the source, I've tasted away from the source. And just time after time, this beer never ceases to impress me. And again, we come back to this idea of creating a beautiful presentation out of extreme flavors. Russian Imperial Stout is one of the biggest and most intense styles of beer in the world. Huge malt, huge hops, huge roast, just an absolutely massive beer. And nearly every flavor that's exhibited in the flavor profile of this style is extreme in one way or another. So to be able to take this really intense style and sort of corral it into this beautiful presentation. And then the other thing is that I find so impressive about Griffin Claw and Dan Rogers' representation of Russian Imperial Stout is that he lets the flavor profile be extreme without the flavors being individually overwhelming. It's so easy for roast to knock your palate out, or for hops to knock your palate, or malt and alcohol to knock your palate out. And this beer is balancing all of these different extreme flavors and letting them kind of remain extreme, but still packing them into this beautiful presentation that is Russian Imperial Stout.
Yeah, I mean it's a great style of beer, and obviously when it's 6 degrees out, it's even better style of beer.
Hey guys, I know that John Gonzalez, I'm back here. We're kind of wrapping up our news over there at the other station, but real quick, Ben, Griffin Claw. If people on the west side of the state want to become more familiar with it, how can we get it?
Well, Griffin Claw did just enter statewide distribution, so we're just starting to get them in draft here in West Michigan. So you can probably look forward to seeing them at your local sort of craft-oriented watering hole. I know I've seen them around town at quite a few places. So keep an eye out for them. They're around on draft, and they're also packaging in 16-ounce tallboy cans. And those, I don't believe, have made their way over to West Michigan yet, but we're expecting to see them here by summertime. Would be amazing.
All right, Paul, what's coming up with I'm a Beer Hound?
A lot of things. We're doing some festivals. We're going to announce pretty soon. I'm going to be teaming up with Lansing Lugnuts, and we're going to do a beer festival April 5th.
I like it.
So it's the first time I've announced that.
I like that. We break some news here on the Going Gonzo Show podcast. They're great guys to work with over there, too. I hung out there this year. I love that ballpark.
Yeah, it's nice. It's real nice.
Yeah, good vibe over there. Guys, thanks again for joining the Going Gonzo Show. Love the podcast. I hope the listeners take time to go through it and kind of dissect the top 25. How you feeling, Ben?
I feel good. A little nervous. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Well, congratulations to both of you guys. As I said, it's quite a feat to do this, and couldn't think of a couple better guys to pull this off. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. And where can we get more information from you, or from Paul?
I'm a beerhound.com, or you can hit us up Facebook / I'm a beer.